VisionWorks Coaching and Counseling. And today we're going to be talking about productivity secrets for Black women professionals living with ADHD. So I'm sure some of us have experienced at one point or another just how to balance work-life expectations when it comes to being productive and, struggling with feeling overwhelmed, feeling burnt out, and being distracted while we're trying to accomplish these things. So today we're just going to talk about some things we can do to overcome some of those challenges, some tips and tricks to help you feel more productive with your work-life expectations and just working towards feeling more successful and feeling accomplished. So one of the first tips and tricks is to identify and have a structured workday. So that means just kind of planning out your work week, having identified the things that you're going to be working on, tasks that you may have, and just helping yourself to just be able to, kind of outline what your workday is going to look like. So it gives you a sense of having some sort of script to follow. And this certainly can help with helping you to be focused and helping you to be able to concentrate on what you need to do for the day. So the way you can do that too is being able to prioritize your tasks. So this is looking at things of assessing what's a high priority versus a low priority. So being able to determine what that is for yourself. So usually focusing on the high priority things first allows you to be able to free up time throughout the day to work on the things that were less a priority. So you kind of prioritize your time, so if you want to look at it in the sense of like when you first thing Monday morning, if you have some sort of time sensitive task or something that's going to be really cumbersome, you might want to prioritize that as being your first thing to do. And once you're able to accomplish that, then you're able to move on to the next thing. And that kind of falls into working on one thing at a time. So I know a lot of us have experienced multitasking and just kind of doing a lot of different things at once. But certainly this can be very counterproductive when you're trying to work on things. If you're being stretched or pulled in too many different directions, that can lead to feeling overwhelmed, feeling distracted, and then essentially, burning out and, nothing gets done at that point. So being able to focus on one thing at a time helps to help keep us focused. It allows you to be able to increase the quality of your work versus quantity. Because when you're focusing on one thing at a time, you're able to pay attention to detail and be really honed in on what it is you're trying to accomplish. But it just helps you also to be able to focus when you're focusing on one thing, you're able to get more done versus starting and stopping a lot of different projects at the same time. So focusing on one thing at a time is very helpful. Another trick is to give yourself meaningful breaks throughout the day. So what that means is, giving yourself that time to just kind of reflect and refocus and being able to, give yourself that mental break that we all need. So I'm sure a lot of us have experienced when we think people who are highly successful or highly productive just kind of push through the workday. They don't really take time for themselves. They don't really stop what they're doing once they start something. Well, to each his own. But studies show that actually when you give yourself more productive time throughout, constructive breaks throughout the day, you tend to be more productive. So what that means is, you kind of structure that into your work day. So let's say 3 or 4 hours in, you're going to be taking your break, and that can be doing some mindful meditation, just having some moments of silence, going for a walk, do whatever you need to do for yourself to kind of help feel refilled and refueled. So when you are able to come back to your tasks, you feel refocused, you're more motivated, and you can, kind of jump back into where you left off. Another trick for being highly productive is celebrating your small wins at the same time. So when you're kind of doing your work day and you're kind of prioritizing, what you need to do throughout the day and just kind of giving attention to the things that need to be done first, sometimes it can be overwhelming when you have a lot of different things. And sometimes we tend to focus on what we weren't able to accomplish versus what we were able to accomplish. So celebrating those small wins, you may not have been able to get through everything in your workday, but if maybe you were able to accomplish 4 or 5 things out of a task of 6 or 7, you can still feel highly productive. But also giving yourself some sort of incentive to work towards. So one of the things you can do to just help you feel more productive and help keep you motivated is to give yourself some type of reward that you're working towards. So for you, that can be doing something really small for yourself, giving yourself some type of incentive. Kind of think about it, for those of us that have children, and they have a behavior chart or some type of chore chart that they work on. So there's things that they have to do each day in order to get the reward that they want, something that they're wanting. You find that children are more motivated, and they tend to work better, work harder because they want that reward. So the same thing applies to professionals as well. Like if we give ourselves those rewards, it helps us to feel more motivated, and get something to work towards. Another management to just help and be more productive is learning to have good work boundaries. So for Black women and women in professions, sometimes we might feel the need to be useful. And what we mean by that is, we take on a lot of tasks. We might be very accommodating when someone's asking us to do certain things, and just, feeling this sense of, you don't want to be perceived as being non-compliant or not a team player or whatever it is. And so when we're asked to do things, we find ourselves overextending ourselves by saying yes to a lot of things. And so now our to-do list went from 5 or 6 things to now it's jumped up to 12 or 20 things. So we've just created a lot more work for ourselves. And then, of course, that can certainly lead to anyone feeling overwhelmed when you have too many things that you have to work on at one time. And when you start to feel overwhelmed, you kind of crash and burn, which leads to burnout where your motivation is not there. Productivity goes all the way down, morale is down, and therefore nothing gets accomplished. So being able to have those good boundaries. So if you feel like you're being asked for more than what you're able to provide, or it's going to create a hindrance of what it is that you're working on or what you need to do for you, being okay with just setting those boundaries and saying no. I know that can feel like a very taboo thing to say and to express sometimes in the workplace. But actually, it's not any of those things. It's really about you establishing what's a boundary for you, and helping you to be able to maintain a healthy work balance so that you're not overextending yourself in such a way where now the work becomes very cumbersome and overwhelming, and therefore productivity suffers because of it. So being okay with saying no, and maybe even delegating some tasks to maybe other people who may be able to provide some sort of assistance. Like if you don't have the availability to do X, Y, and Z, but a team member does, then maybe delegating those tasks to that team member. The work still gets done. You're still able to achieve what you need to do for your productivity goals, and the work still gets done at the end of the day. And that's really what it's about. So those are just some tips to just help all of us to be more productive, and just being mindful of what works for each of us. So knowing yourself is going to be the best way to help you feel more productive. But maybe some of these tips of just maybe being able to structure your workday, being able to prioritize, being able to focus on one thing at a time, taking breaks when you need to, and celebrating the small wins of what you were able to accomplish, and also just having good boundaries. Those can all be really helpful tips for all of us to just kind of practice daily, so that we feel more accomplished or more productive. So I thank you for your time. Thank you for watching, and I hope you were able to take away some of this information and apply it to your day-to-day. Thank you.